Good afternoon. This is Terry with SunNav Healthcare Advocates, and I'm sitting here with Jennifer Verwick, and she has agreed to kind of have a little conversation with me and talk about the care that has been provided by SunNav Healthcare Advocates for both her mom and her dad. The first question that I have for you is, what made you decide to reach out to an independent patient advocate?
I think just being overwhelmed with everything. A lot of my friends had only had to take care of one elderly parent, and I was in charge of caregiving for two. So that was pretty overwhelming. And we managed pretty well before my dad's Alzheimer's diagnosis. My mom had more physical problems, and my dad was more of a cognition issue. And it just got to be way too overwhelming managing both of their cares and all of their medications and all of their doctor's appointments. It was just absolutely overwhelming.
So in light of that, tell me a little bit about what home life was like.
It was very difficult. There really wasn't much of a balance because at the time I was still working part-time, so I was teaching flute lessons and doing real estate. My son was in high school, probably freshman, sophomore-ish, about the time that we met Terry or so. And there was absolutely no downtime. So I would usually work in the morning, check on my parents at lunch, bring them lunch, do grocery shopping at some point during the week. I think I was bathing my mother at least once or twice a week at the time. I'd also stay at the apartment until my dad would bathe himself. But it was still quite a bit of time being away from my family. I would do grocery shopping for myself and my parents, like split my card in half. All of those things. I was doing all of the bills, all of the medications, just everything. It was staggering. And I think I'm still in shock that they did it all for so long. But yeah, I was definitely torn. When I wasn't with my mom and dad, I felt like I should be. When I was with my mom and dad, I felt like I needed to be at home because I felt like I was neglecting my son. So yeah, it was pretty hard. So there's many things, and before bursting into tears, it gave me peace of mind, first of all. It was somebody that threw me a lifeline so that I wasn't drowning. Anytime that I had questions about complicated things or something that would arise with my parents, whether it was the blood thickness, and oh my gosh, the reading was this, and what should we do, or we're out of this medication, or now we're having this side effect of these rashes, or something like that, or if it was questions about getting them in and out of the doctor's offices, or questions about the Medicare system, or what should be happening next, and then what is actually going on with my dad. Is it just old age and memory issues and things like that? The wealth of knowledge that Terry brings to the table was incredible. So that was a piece of it. The compassion she would bring. My dad can be a little prickly and doesn't like new people and doesn't like new things, and didn't necessarily like someone coming in from a home health standpoint into his space, at the time they lived in an apartment. And so right away, Terry was able to win him over. What I liked about it was she was so personable. What I liked about it is that she just treated him like people, not like sick people. And so I loved that, and I think they enjoyed that. And to the point where now they consider her like a third daughter. So there's my sister and myself, and Terry is the adopted daughter, because they just got so close to her and they trusted her. She took time with them. She explained things in a way that they could understand. And so, there were many things, many benefits. I could still even go on.
I want to talk about, because when I met your parents, they were still living independently we're going to call it home. It was an apartment. They'd been there like 13 years.
Yeah, a good while.
And I was kind of able to work with you and your folks, not only through living independently, but then moving to assisted living, and then now where we're at with nursing home and on hospice. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like and how SunNav was able to help you with each of those transitions?
Absolutely. So the progression was very gradual. In what I would say, unfortunately, is just the decline of my parents in their old age, and as their illnesses and different things became, more significant. And so what I loved about Terry was that she was able to inform me about the resources and things that could help me at each stage of the game, in addition to so many things that she herself would provide. So there's no possible way I would have been able to navigate through the complicated process without her assistance and all of those things. In addition to just being, much like a shoulder to cry on, or I would share with her what had been going on, and then she would say, well, maybe you're ready for this, or, the first time we actually met with the hospice team and what that meant. And then, what they should be providing at an assisted living versus a nursing home, or just the different levels of care, and really being able to explain all of that instead of just having a pamphlet or a booklet that you get when you go visit places that you're considering for care for your parents.
How would you say that having an advocate on board helped each time that there was a hospitalization? Because I know both of them had COVID. I know that there's been GI issues with dad. There's been falls with mom, infections.
Absolutely.
And all that. So how was it helpful to have an advocate when people are going back and forth in home, hospital?
So Terry was absolutely indispensable in that there were times where I just simply could not leave. Whether it be I had a closing or something with real estate or something with my son. There were just times where she played the role of, I guess, an additional family member in the fact that because she was so knowledgeable and then she knew my parents so well and their situation so well, I had no problem with her substituting for myself at a doctor appointment or for her to go to the hospital because she knew exactly what they should and shouldn't be doing as far as care, those types of things. So she was able to truly be my voice and knock it out of the park as my advocate and give me that peace of mind where I didn't feel like I had to be all places at once and spread so thin and be letting my parents down. So she was available anytime I needed her. I would always usually text first and say, can I call you? This and such is happening. Or when is the next time that you have a break? Because I knew she had many patients and many other clients. So, but I do want to say this, she never made me feel like I was in imposition. And that was huge because I already felt like I was being in imposition. So for her, because she's caring and is such an incredible person, she always made me feel like she was in it with me. She was in the trenches with me. And so it was absolutely invaluable.
There have been a couple of times when specifically your father went into the hospital. He has congestive heart failure and he would come back and we'd go to rehab first. And you would think, at least I would think, because there's an advocate on board, we wouldn't have med issues, we wouldn't have challenges. But there were a couple times that we had like a 30-pound weight gain in like a week. And we really had to work hard at the rehab to get some results. And I do want you to talk about that because I hear a lot when I talk to people, oh, I know what meds I take. Oh, I know. And it wasn't that you didn't know, but there was still challenges.
Right.
And
So even at a rehabilitation center, they have so many people there and they're spread thin most of the time. So if we would not have had Terry giving that additional checkpoint, and because she had the background knowledge already of my parents and had spent so much time with them, she was able to see the swelling in my dad's leg. She was able to see if he wasn't walking like he normally did, or if he wasn't speaking like he normally did. And then same thing with my mother. So not only did she come to the home and do those types of things or go to doctor's appointments and those types of things, but she was always actively involved in the rehab centers. She also would introduce herself to all the administration, the other nurses. She was excellent at communicating her role as our advocate so that everybody understood what was going on and they were able to respond and answer the questions she had, or if she noticed something was going on with the medication, because there were many times. And, it's a complicated process, and both of my parents were on quite a few medications. And so she was able to find times where, hey, you know what, they didn't give her this, or I didn't notice a pain patch on your mom, or they didn't give this before this, or perhaps this food was causing this issue, or different things like that, or that my mom would maybe try to double dose herself, or trying to seek Advils, or different things like that. So that was also, I can't even imagine what would have happened if we wouldn't have had her checking the people that are supposed to be taking care of my parents, whether they were nurses or doctors or aides. So for sure, that was also hugely important.
another question that I feel like I get a lot as an advocate is, you're so expensive, we can't afford you. And even though we would all agree that we're living in times that our economy is definitely stretching all of us, I think. Could you speak to the cost of advocacy and how you guys handled it as a family?
Sure. So for me, what I would say is the value in having someone walk alongside you and almost serve as some guardrails in the process is well worth not having a huge episode or huge event where the person falls and breaks a hip or something like that, because no one is at the wheel, or people are spread too thin to know what is going on. So Terry prevented many of those things from happening because along the way she would notice things and she was providing that service. As far as being able to afford it, we got together with the other family members, and between my parents, myself, and my sister, that's how we ended up pooling our money so that we could afford to hire an advocate that would help us navigate this whole process and just take better care of my parents in a more responsible way, so that we were able to spread the load so that it was much easier to bear. So that was worth it for us. It was not easy, and we definitely, made sacrifices and different things along the way, but it was so worth it, because I believe my parents' quality of life was directly improved because of our relationship with Terry and with SunNav.
So because your parents also went from independent living, which I know having an advocate when people are independently living, the cost of living for them is not super exorbitant yet. But then when they went to an assisted living, there was some talk about, do we still need an advocate with assisted living? Can you speak to that a little bit? Because a lot of people think they don't once somebody moves into a facility where they're getting.
So I think it's a misconception that assisted living, you can put your parents there and they'll be fine. Because that is not the case. That is not a facility that offers 24-hour care. They may have levels of care, but my mother was at one of the highest levels of care, and I still felt like she wasn't getting enough attention and many things were being overlooked. And so that's with me going over multiple times a week and also with Terry being there as well. So what I can tell you is it is absolutely advantageous for you to have an advocate even within that system, but for many things. The big piece for me was the medication piece. I thought that was huge. We had an excellent nursing director there that did a good job with meds, but nobody can be perfect, and she's managing medications for 100 people. It depends on the size of the facility. And this was a very nice facility that was expensive that we had my parents in, and we still absolutely needed assistance and Terry's assistance with managing and checking the people that are supposed to be doing the checking to begin with. So it was very important.
And there was a good nursing director there over the medications, but what a lot of people don't know in an assisted living is, yes, there's a nurse that manages that, but the people that actually give the medications are med aides. And they only have to have 9 weeks of education to become a med aide. Now, some of those that were there had been doing it for 20 plus years, and I'm sure were very good. But we had one mistake where a medication was stopped, and even though it was written and turned in, there was a med aide that saw it was stopped and took it upon herself to write an order from the doctor to restart it. And now I can't remember which one it was,
right.
But it was a critical one that we needed stopped. And med aides aren't supposed to write orders. And I was able to find that by looking at meds. And honestly, the one thing your mom hasn't lost is her mental acuity. And she knew her meds upside down, forwards and backwards,
right.
And questioned it every time.
And so in particular, if your parents are experiencing any type of cognition issues and mental issues, that's where it's even more important that you have an advocate and someone that is checking over the medications. And especially when you have med changes frequently and things like that, it becomes absolutely essential.
So I do not mince any bones about the fact that I'm a Christian. How has that affected the way that you perceived care from SunNav with your parents?
So my parents are believers, so it was a huge piece of that, and especially with everything that they were going through, and I think they both experienced ups and downs of depression and different things like that. So the fact that we would pray together and that Terry would participate in that, or she would have a scripture, or she would share things that she had heard from her pastor, different things like that. Those things, again, just reiterated the wholeness of care that she was able to provide. So not only physical and mental and emotional, but then that spiritual piece as well. really helped my parents, and so she kind of ministered to my parents in that way. So the other thing I think that was important is that she was always very sensitive to the fact that at the very, very beginning she got to know them first and got to know the type of people that they were, what they would be comfortable with. She didn't come in super strong and browbeat them into thinking any specific way. Spiritually, she just basically was very sensitive to it and understood that they were believers, and then slowly shared. So I wouldn't have known right out of the gate because she was very professional in that way. So for people that maybe don't share her beliefs, I think she would also be an excellent advocate because she's not someone that's going to push her thought process and her thought process and her religion onto them. I think she's very good about being sensitive and meeting people where they are spiritually.
So we've come like a really long ways in 4 years with your parents, and they're like, you know, another set of parents. Which is wonderful, and I'm probably going to be just as emotional because I just love them. But talk about the transition when you're like, wow, we're letting you go, like, but it's a good thing. But it's kind of where do we go from here, and you know what did that kind of look like, and what is life like for you now that your son has graduated?
So a lot of that has happened actually this summer, where I think I would feel like almost like a guilt. And if I switch out the G words, what I was really feeling was grief. Mm-hmm. Because it's really a slow grieving process as you watch your parents in their decline. And so it's really just being able to release the responsibility, which Terry played a big part in helping me with that gradually, because I knew that she was very capable of handling all the aspects that were so overwhelming to me, so that I could go back to being a mother and being a wife and living my own life and doing my own career. I think this summer has really been a good chance for me to just, you know, to coin a cheesy phrase, a let go and let God, but really just look forward to my parents not be suffering anymore, and looking forward to them finding their place in heaven and them being at peace, and just trying to enjoy every moment that I have with them, be more present. I think because I was a caregiver for so long and maximizing and juggling so many different things, when I would see them, I would still have those moments where I would be present and we'd talk and we'd chat, or I'd take my dad to get an ice cream cone, or take my mom out to lunch after a doctor appointment. I would also be checking, you know, how many things they need. Do they need Kleenex? Do they need, you know, Vaseline? Do they need all those things? And so now I'm doing much less of that and just really trying to be present in the moment, tell them how much I love them, how wonderful they were as parents, that it's okay, we're all gonna be okay, whichever one passes first, we're gonna help the other one, they're gonna be okay. Just almost giving them permission to have an end to their life, a beautiful end to their life that they've lived, and they've had wonderful lives, and God has blessed us more than what we ever deserve, with all the experience and loved ones in their lives, and people that have come in and out of our lives, like Terry and different people. So it's really been a journey for me this summer, as soon as we went into hospice, and just being able to let go, allow myself to let go, allow myself to hand them over to God, and let God take it from here, and let God be their peace, and let God meet their needs spiritually, instead of me feeling like I had to fix every problem and solve every issue and help them feel happy all the time, or all of those things, that it's okay. And so that's been a big piece of that. And I know along the way, another thing that was really helpful with Terry is she has that peace because of being a Christian. And even like 2 or 3 years ago, when things got bad and we thought that would be a time for the end for one of my parents, I remember it was comforting to hear somebody else with that same assurance remind me of that. And so I think, in addition to her giving the logical and the medical, the nurse persona, and giving me all the information that I needed to digest about what was physically going wrong with them medically, it was just nice for them to know, you know what, even though they're diabetic, it's the end of their life, hey, you know, have some lemon cake, have a butter pecan ice cream. Enjoy those special moments that will be fleeting, and that I'll end up treasuring, and that will end up being a comfort to me once they do finally go home to be with the Lord.
It's very very sweet. I'm trying not to cry.
Me too. It's so good.
I'm totally trying not to cry. It's wonderful. One other question I have for you that I think it's important for people who might be looking for an advocate. I try to make sure that I'm not telling you what to do, or when somebody asks you something, how to answer it. Can you speak to that a little bit? Did you feel like as an advocate it was like my way or the highway, or did you feel educated on all options and free to make choices, even though you might have asked what I thought? Hopefully I still put it back on you like this is your choice.
Absolutely. In fact, that leads me to something else that I wanted to say. And I think the another benefit, and there are so many that I've tried to hit on today, is because you have been in this space for so long, the networking that she has as far as different people that can provide help, the list of resources that she has in all these different areas, not only with people that can come in, whether it's a hospice company that she would recommend or that she's worked with in the past, or a medical supplies company that she's worked with in the past, or a specific medical device or something like that, or research, because she's so involved and she's done this for so long in this space. That was another benefit to having someone on your side that can lay out all of these possibilities that can help you, instead of you trying to research all of this when you already are short on time to begin with. So that was actually huge. And absolutely, I never felt pushed in one direction or the other. I always felt like sometimes I had almost too many choices sometimes, where then I would just really need to sit with the information and talk to my parents about it. And sometimes, you know, in my situation, my mom still had the cognition, but my dad did not. And so a lot of times you're making these decisions for your parents. And, you know, that was still a big help because she's been in that position before, and she's able to share what other families have done and what has worked for other families, and where they have been successful in meeting the needs of their parents in that very situation. So all of those things kind of combined to answer that question. But I always felt like she had great resources as far as, you know, even, you know, different doctors and different services and different places to go and all of those types of things, you know, down to like the food and diet and what can spike different things when, and time of day to do things. And just the wealth of knowledge that she brings was truly such a blessing. And I honestly cannot imagine what the last 4 years would have been like without her. And so I do really appreciate everything that you have done. And just the love and the passion that you bring to what you do is unmatched. So I highly recommend Terry and the services that she provides. She seeks out excellent staff. Anyone, when she could not be available to us, anyone that she ever recommended or brought in was excellent. And we're just really, really pleased and so glad that we were able to meet her and to be one of her clients.
I love that. Thank you so much for doing this today. As you can tell, you can't be with somebody and work with somebody for 4 years and not get close, in my opinion, if you're doing it out of relational, you just get close. And so I've really appreciated you. I've really appreciated your parents tremendously. And
I need to say this.
Okay.
That you were trying to be my advocate while you were going through your own issues, again, speaks to she had to text me because I was too afraid to text her when she was the one whose mom was dying. And I just couldn't even reconcile that in my brain, and I forgot to even mention that, you know, how important her patients and her clients are to her, that even in her own personal time of struggle, that she was still trying to put them first. Really just speaks to her character and her dedication to her profession and to what she does and how much she truly cares. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. You did it. You officially made me cry. So
I'm sorry. I just remembered that.
Yeah, you weren't the only one that said that. So,
Of course,
this is true. Well, for nurses though, it's sometimes when you have your own family issues, and I'm sure even as a teacher, it's yes. And sometimes it's nice to get a break from your own grief and help somebody else, but
I get that.
it also helped you, right? So I do appreciate you sitting with us today.
Of course.
Thank you so
Happy to do it.
very
Happy
much.
to do it anytime.
Yeah, thank you.